Good morning, everyone. I am Ria, and I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the NSS unit of Sophia College and welcome you for participating for today's webinar. Uh, I would now like to request our NSS coordinator and our program officer, Dr. Vaishali Pachunde, to introduce our resource person for today.
Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you. Yoga accepts, yoga gives. Yoga is not a religion, it is a way of living that aims towards a healthy mind in a healthy body. It helps to manage stress and anxiety and keeps you relaxing. It also helps in increasing flexibility, muscle strength, and body tone. Today is the International Yoga Day, and this year, with the COVID-19 pandemic, there is virtual celebration of the 6th International Yoga Day, and the theme that has been chosen is Yoga at Home and Yoga with Family. So, we, the member of Sophia family, is here to celebrate it with our own Miss Jyoti Mantri from Associate Professor, Department of Microbiology, Sophia College. She is practicing Iyengar yoga for last 25 years. She completed a yoga teacher's training course from Bhavan's Yoga Bharati Institute and Kaivalya Dham. Before she start her session, we will like to play one video message of our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi. So Ria, first play that video.
Yes, ma'am.
Friends, greetings on the 6th International Day of Yoga. I'm very happy to note the growing popularity of yoga in the last few years, and especially among the youth. We are marking the 6th Yoga Day in extraordinary times. Usually, Yoga Day is about public events, mass participation. This year, Yoga Day goes indoors. The theme of the year is yoga at home and yoga with family. Friends, the world is fighting a pandemic of monumental scale, but yoga provides multi-dimensional solutions to the multiple challenges COVID-19 has brought. Yoga gives you the opportunity to know your immune system better and put in the extra efforts where needed. Yoga has the potential to cater to mental, physical, and psychological challenges. It puts to test how one can live in challenging times. Friends, yoga offers something for everyone. It enables strong mind and healthy body. In the post-COVID era, the focus on preventive health care will get stronger, and that is why I'm confident that yoga will become even more popular. Friends, these are times of distancing. But do you know that yoga is what ends distance? It is said, Yujjate anen iti yoga. Yoga is that which joins or brings things together. Yoga ends various kinds of distance. Distance between our mind and body, which is the root cause of many problems. Distance between the life we have and the life we want to have. Distance between our expectations and reality, which can become a source of stress. Friends, the regular practice of yoga gives emotional strength and empathy. We begin to understand that others would be going through the same struggle as us. So, we become a shoulder of support for someone in need of it. Friends, the COVID-19 pandemic may have reduced our mobility, but it should not affect our enthusiasm towards yoga. People have been sharing innovative ways to practice yoga in times of the pandemic. They are also sharing how they will mark Yoga Day on the 21st. This is a great sign. This time, small is smart and small is good. Respecting the present situation, let us mark the 6th International Day of Yoga from our homes, with our family. And let us follow all norms of social distancing. Let us make yoga more popular and our planet healthier. Thank you.
Jyoti ma'am,
Yes.
you start your session.
Yeah, you can focus the first slide.
Yes, Ria, coordinate with ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So good morning and a very happy International Yoga Day to all. This comes with a reminder that yoga has to be practiced every day. It is not to be practiced only on one day, that is International Yoga Day. Well, the title today is Yoga, Finding Calm in the Chaos. Now, finding calm in the chaos is a phrase I picked up from a short story which I read a little while ago. I'll just narrate the story to you in brief. A long time ago, there once lived a king who asked the artist in his kingdom to paint a picture of peace. Peace as in P-E-A-C-E. The king also announced a reward for the best picture. Very soon his kingdom was flooded with pictures. His court was flooded with pictures and the king selected the best picture. But the ministers were very surprised at the king's choice because the painting that the king had selected had rugged mountains, heavy rainfall and dark clouds. And in the corner, the painter had painted a small nest with a bird sitting in it. Well, the king explained his choice by saying that peace does not refer to a place where there is no noise, no trouble, no chaos, but peace means being in the midst of all these things and still being calm. Now, each one of us face chaotic situations and each one has to devise a way of being calm in this chaotic situation. And for me, yoga has been the way. Now, at the offset, let me tell you that I am no expert on yoga. I have been practicing yoga and whatever I present today is my experience as I have gone through this journey of yoga. Next. Priya, next slide. Well, now if you look at this picture and reflect for a minute, it is talking about finding stillness and that too within yourself. Now, this is quite countercultural to the fast-paced life that we are leading, where our life is made up of activities which are well planned at the beginning of the day, and then we feel very sorted when all the activities are done. So the idea of sitting still is very difficult, and that too, then retreating within. Now, if you do so, you may have to face the demons which are there within. That is, you may have to face a part of your personality which probably you don't want to admit to. And hence, the monkey mind, which is chattering and which is jumping from one branch to the other, is set free because it is very difficult to cage this monkey mind. Next, please. This sounds or this seems very, very familiar. A multitasking woman. And you may be told that women are very good at multitasking, but trust me, this is a trap. It only means that women can do much more work. However, let me warn you that multitasking should never become a habit. Do multitasking only when needed because it is Please mute the videos. Mute the audio.
Yes, ma'am, you start. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Jyoti ma'am.
Jyoti ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So this shows the multitasking woman, and multitasking, as I told you, is very stressful, should be done only when it is a requirement, it is needed, and not made as a habit because it will tax the brain. Next slide, please. Well, now, in addition to work worries, there are so many other worries and so many other stresses in life. For example, insomnia, financial worries, relationship problems, business problems. So as a result of all these stresses, next slide, please. This is how we appear. A body filled with stress and very little human left in this body. So then what is the option? Is it possible to live without stress? Or is it that we should learn how to deal with stress? And is all stress bad for us? Well, let us see. Next slide, please. No, all stress is not bad. Some amount of stress is needed because that keeps us motivated, that allows growth, that allows us to learn new things. But if the stress is too little, well, then you may be bored. And if it is too much, then there is always a fear of being burnout. Next, please. Well, this is the same thing shown in the form of a graph where level of stress is plotted against performance. And you see here very low stress causing boredom, optimal stress causing growth, learning, and excess stress causing anxiety, fatigue, exhaustion, breakdown, and burnout. Next slide, please. Now, where does the stress affect our body? Let us see where it affects our body. The stress is very exhaustive for the body and the mind. It can affect all aspects of your life, including your emotions, your behavior, your thinking ability, and your physical health. Now, since people handle stress differently, naturally, the symptoms that appear in each individual would be different. For example, there may be some who may land up with a cardiovascular disease or high BP, or some may land up with digestive problems, or some may land up with reproductive problems, or the skin may break out into eczema, into acne, or there may be hair loss. So many symptoms and so many health hazards caused by stress. Next, please. Well, now let us understand the anatomy of stress, how stress arises in the body. Our autonomic nervous system consists of two parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system will direct the body's response to dangers and to emergency situations. Now, as soon as your body senses a danger, a cocktail of hormones will be secreted by the adrenal glands, and this will cause a response called as flight or fight mode or response. Now, so this will prepare your body for flight or fight, which is required at that moment. But as soon as the danger disappears, the system will settle down. It will not remain the flight or fight response. Whereas if you see the parasympathetic response or parasympathetic system, this is responsible for resting, recovering, and regenerating. So it is also called as the rest and the digest response. This will help to lower down the BP, slow down the heart rate, boost immune functions, and restore good health, good digestion, and good sleep. Now, does this mean that one response is better than the other? No. It means that the response should be appropriate to the situation. For example, if there is a wild animal attacking you, your body should show the flight or fight response and not the parasympathetic rest or digest response, because otherwise you may land up being a lunch or dinner for the wild animal. Next slide, please. Well, now since we are talking about stress, since we are talking about fight or flight, let us see what happens in brief during the fight or flight response. Now, in response to the danger, what happens is the hormonal secretions, a cocktail of hormones will be secreted by the adrenal glands, as we saw, and the body immediately responds to either fight or to either flee from that emergency situation. So naturally, since the body is ready, the heart rate, the mental alertness, the muscular tension, all have gone up. Metabolic changes will take place in your body, and it will make energy available to each and every cell of your body for the flight or fight. The body also will shut down systems that are earlier slide, Ria. The body also will shut down other systems that are not a priority at that particular moment. For example, digestion, elimination, growth, repair, and reproduction will be shut down. But rest assured, this response is only there till the danger is there, after which this response should stop. Next slide, please. Well, now the fight or flight response is an ancient response. This response has been responsible for the survival of the human race over thousands of years. So our ancestors, in the face of danger, would either fight or they would flee from that particular emergency. And if they survived this, then everything would soon return to normal. So the adrenal would stop producing the hormones, and the systems which were temporarily shut down would resume operation. Next slide, please. There. This is the modern man. The modern man or modern individual is often unable to resolve his stress and hence lives in a chronically stressed out state. So the fight or flight response will cause psychological and physiological problems. The high stress levels will not be remedied either by fighting or fleeing. For example, if you have to face a situation like a missed interview appointment or a missed train, etc., you can neither fight nor you can flee. And hence, the cocktail of hormones will remain high, and the body will continuously reel under the effect of the adrenal hormones. As a result, important functions like digestion, elimination, sleep, repair, regeneration are severely affected. Next slide, please. So then, what is the solution to this? Again, focusing on relaxation as another high pressure goal is not going to help. So if you tell yourself, I must relax, I am going to relax, I should relax, this is not going to help. In fact, it could happen that you may land up with more stress trying to relax. Next slide, please. Well, so then restorative yoga. Now this term restorative yoga was coined by BKS Iyengar Guruji. And this restorative yoga uses a lot of props, which we'll see a little later on. But let me tell you that when I find myself trapped in a sort of a maniac mindset, when I don't remember what day of the week it is, or what month it is, or what was the color of the sky in the morning, or whether I smelled the coffee, no. Then in that case, what happens is I am in a very, very stressed out state. So I go into a restorative yoga stance or a restorative yoga pose. And when I practice this restorative yoga, it soothes my nerves. It acts like a balm to my nerves. And then I come out of this stressful situation. Well, now, what is the relevance of this in today's time? Now, you know that at present, there is a worldwide pandemic and a lockdown. And this is causing havoc with one's mental well-being. So you have married people facing problems with their relationship because they lose patience with their partners, employees who are worried about their next paycheck, students very hazy and worried about their academic future, and people who are very lonely. In fact, we may have a secondary pandemic of burnouts and stress-related problems in this latter half of 2020 if we don't take care. So the lockdown, in fact, may be the world's biggest psychological experiment, and we may have to pay the price if we do not become resilient and we do not take care of our mental health. Next slide, please. So these are the props that I told you about. So in restorative yoga, we hold a pose for a long time to get benefit out of that pose so that the muscles, the mind relaxes. And this is possible by using the props. So when you use props, you can hold a pose and get the benefit out of that pose because you're holding the pose for a long time. And as the muscles and the mind relaxes, you can reduce the stress-related diseases. Next slide, please. So these are some of the benefits of restorative yoga. So restorative yoga will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest. And as a result, it will cause healing, growth, repair to happen because it will balance out the nervous system. Also, restorative yoga will allow you to overcome various problems like weakness, fatigue, anxiety, depression, insomnia. It will help you in various pains and aches, like your pains in the muscles, fibromyalgia, or menstrual problems, or menopausal problems. Also, obesity, which is caused by hormonal imbalance, digestive disorders, and also asthma. So, restorative yoga is also a preparation for meditation. Because when you are a restorative yoga pose, you are relaxed, you're rested, and then you can start practicing mindfulness. And mindfulness is very important during meditation. So if you see the values of meditation and restorative yoga, both share common values of acceptance, of stillness, and of surrendering to the present moment. Next slide, please. Now, I am going to show you some of the restorative yoga poses or practices that I follow regularly. Now, if you see the slide, it is showing you, I'm starting with forward bends. It is showing you two poses. The extreme right hand pose is Balasana. Balasana as in a child pose. And the left hand picture is Adho Mukha Virasana. Now, in both these poses are very easy to perform, and they're very gentle poses. So suppose you have a knee problem, you can keep a mat or you can keep a blanket below your knees, or you can roll a towel or a blanket and place it between your knees from the back. Now, if you see here, the hips are planted firmly on the heels and the upper back is totally extended. So this will relieve the spine and it will strengthen the spine. Now, the entire body from the toes till the tips of the fingers are active. Now, if you see a forward bend, there are various advantages of forward bends. Forward bends will stretch the entire backside of the body, as I said, from the toes to the tips of the fingers. Now, the entire spine gets stretched, and as a result, this will build strength and flexibility in the spine. It will also release a lot of tension which is there, which we hold in the neck, in the upper back, and in the lower back. Next slide, please. Now, this is Uttanasana. I am resting my head on a chair. If it is not possible, you can't reach out to the chair, you can place a bolster, a single bolster on the chair, or even two bolsters on the chair, and then rest your head. Remember, you have to maintain these poses for a long time, say about 5 minutes, 7 minutes, or you are comfortable even 10 minutes. So you have to be comfortable. You can't be strained. Now, if you see the calves and the hamstring, they are totally stretched. And the lower back, if you see, the upper body is totally stretched or extended. So since it is a forward bend, this forward bend creates space between each and every vertebra of the body. And this will increase circulation to the nerves which are trapped between the vertebra. So this will soothe the nervous system, and it will quickly get you out of the stressful flight or fight mode. Next slide, please. Janu Shirshasana. Now, in this, one of the leg is folded and the other is stretched out. Now, if the folded leg can't be flat on the ground, you are free to put a rolled towel below the folded leg. The stretched leg has to be totally stretched. The calves, the hamstrings have to be stretched. Now, mind you, here the aim is not to bend down. It is not a competition of how much I can bend down. It is of elongating your body, elongating your spine. You have to reach ahead and not down. So you have to stretch yourself as much as you can ahead. And then rest your head either on one bolster. If you can't reach your head on one bolster, you are free to use two bolsters or even three bolsters. So the head has to be rested. Now, since this is a forward bend, the forward bend, if you see, it is stimulating, it will stimulate the internal organs. When you are bending forward, what will happen is you'll increase circulation of blood to the abdominal organs, like the spleen, the pancreas, the liver, intestines, and kidney. So this will improve digestion, and other metabolic functions. Next slide, please. Paschimottanasana. Now here both the legs are stretched out, and again the aim is not to bend down but to reach ahead, to stretch ahead, to lengthen the spine. And after you have lengthened the spine, then rest the head on a bolster. If you can't reach on one bolster, even two bolsters would do. Now if you see, forward bends will increase circulation to the pelvic region. And there are some common complaints faced by women during menstruation, menopause, because these symptoms or these syndromes will be taken care of as fresh blood flows to the uterus in this pose. So increasing circulation to this particular area will also help with infertility and with impotency. Next slide, please. Adho Mukha Shvanasana, downward facing dog. So if you see the extreme top right hand slide, I am resting my head on a block. If you can't rest your head on a block, you can use a bolster or even two bolsters. Now, in this pose, this is a strengthening pose and also increasing your flexibility. The entire body from the tips of the toes to the tips of the fingers is totally stretched. You should aim at pulling the core towards the spine, pulling the chest towards the thighs, and hitting out the thighs. The entire hamstring calf is completely stretched. The fingers are totally pressed on the floor, and so also the soles of the feet. Now, the same pose can be done on a chair, where I'm resting my head on a chair. I'm using a chair as a prop and two blocks also as a prop. Or you can climb up on the chair and then rest your head. So the back is totally stretched, the back becomes concave, and this improves the posture. Now, forward bends will calm the mind and cool the body. So when your head is below your heart, you will see that fresh oxygenated blood will rush to your head, and this is going to rejuvenate you. Next slide, please. Now we come to certain back bends. So this is Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Now if you see the top right figure, I have used two bolsters. A bolster is placed vertically below my back, and another bolster is there below my legs or my feet. My shoulder is on the bolster, but my neck and the head is hanging down. It is rested on the floor. In the second posture, I have used two small stools, and my head is resting down, whereas my shoulder is firmly planted on the bolster. So, back bends help in improving your posture. So if you are at a job where you are sitting most of the time, it is likely that you will land up with a posture which is hunched. So back bends will help you counteract the damage caused by the bad posture. So these will open the chest, they will lengthen the spine, they'll strengthen the upper back, and in back bends, you are bending the spine in a direction which you are not used to, and this will improve your posture. So if you see in both these postures, my chest is totally open. Also, it is going to improve the breathing. Next slide, please. So here I'm using different props for the same Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Top right, I'm using a chair and a bolster to rest my head. Then the bottom right, I'm using a block to raise my buttocks. And in the left hand side, I'm using a yoga ring to raise my buttock. So all these postures, if you see, they are opening the chest area. So by opening the chest area, the breathing will improve. This is because the shoulders and the chest, these are the places where you hold a lot of tension. So most of the people, if you see, who are doing sedentary jobs, they have their shoulders rolled in and a head that is craned forward like a turtleneck. So this will make your breathing very shallow because the lungs are getting compressed here and you will tire out very easily. But if you practice your back bends daily, then they will open this area and they will encourage us to keep our shoulders rolled back. Once your chest starts opening up, then there is more space created in your lungs, and this will allow you for deeper breathing and more oxygen to flow through your body. Next slide, please. This is also Sarvangasana only, but here I'm using a chair to raise my body. So the shoulder is rolled back, the chest is open. Sarvangasana will also help you to open up the hip flexor, and as it extends the hips, and this will give the muscles in the hips a chance to stretch. Next slide, please. Supta Virasana. This is also a back bend. I'm using 2 bolsters. You can use 3 bolsters if you can't reach back, or even 4 bolsters. The purpose is to feel rested. And there is a brick kept below my head so that the chin goes down and the eyes are rolling down and not rolling up. Now here also, if you see, the chest is totally open and the shoulders are properly rounded. Now, if you see, these poses, the back bends, will allow a lot of blood to flow to the thymus. The thymus is a lymphoid organ. It is a lymphoid organ, and it is situated in the neck area above the heart. So the thymus gets stimulated, and this will aid in immune functions because thymus is a very important lymphoid organ which is involved in generating immunity. Also, a lot of blood will flow to the neck area, and the neck area has got a lot of lymph glands. As blood flows to the lymph glands, what will happen is, again, this will cause an increase in the immunity. So if you see, all these back bends are very good for increasing your immunity, or boosting your immunity. Now, next slide, please. We come to a totally restorative pose now, no forward bend or no back bend. This is Supta Baddha Konasana. If you see, I have raised my upper back by using a bolster, and I have opened the pelvic area by using a belt, and I have rolled 2 blankets to place below my legs so that I can hold this posture for a very long time. Again, if you see here, the chest is completely open. This is very important. So Supta Baddha Konasana gives you a good stretch for the inner thighs, the groin, the knees, and it improves the flexibility in these regions. It also offers relief from menstrual discomfort and menopausal symptoms. And it is a very relaxing pose which can be done at the end of a very active yoga class. Next slide, please. Now, this is Viparit Karni. Viparit Karni is a semi-supine state, semi-supine pose, very relaxing pose. It is a mild inversion, but also a restorative pose. Now, if you see the slide to the extreme right, I have placed a bolster under the buttocks. If you can't do that, you can do it without the bolster. And on the left-hand side, you can do it very comfortably using the chair. Only see that your legs are at a perfect right angle and your hip is as close as possible to the chair or to the wall. Now, this is a restorative pose, so it will relax you. Now, what happens here is, it will lower down the heart rate, and this will initiate the relaxation response. And this will lower down the anxiety, the stress, and even insomnia. So if you are having sleepless night, you can just relax in this position, and very soon you start feeling drowsy. Also, it will facilitate venous drainage. And by elevating the legs, what will happen is, it will promote the drainage, and it will prevent excess fluid buildup in the legs. So this becomes a very effective treatment for reducing swelling and pain in the lower extremities. Then it will also stretch the hamstrings. If you see, the hamstrings and the calves are stretched. It will also elongate the back muscles, and this will reduce the curve in the lumbar area. And it will relieve low back tension or low back pain. It will also alleviate menstrual cramps. Also improve digestion. So if you have had a full meal and you're feeling very bloated, just remaining in this posture will reduce the bloated feeling, and it will aid in digestion. So these are the restorative yoga poses. Now, many people, they think that, well, many students may think that these are very passive poses. So, do you practice this yoga? Well, let me tell you how I practice my schedule or my yoga. The days when I am totally exhausted, very tired, and don't have energy, then I go in for total restorative yoga for about 45 to 50 minutes, and that relaxes me. But the days when I feel I have enough energy in my body, or I'm quite energetic, then I practice the active yoga, that is yogasanas. Maybe I do a round of forward bends or backward bends without props, or I may do my inversions. And then last 10 minutes I may devote to restorative yoga. But there is one practice which I definitely want to tell you, which helps me and which I do regularly, and that is Surya Namaskar, or the sun salutation. Now, Surya Namaskar has numerous benefits. So people who often fail to realize that Surya Namaskar is a complete workout. So it will not require any equipment. It will just require a mat, and you can do your Surya Namaskar. It will help you in breaking free from the exhaustive and dull routine of our lives, and also exhaustive or dull routines which you follow in the gym. Now, when you regularly practice Surya Namaskar, it will enhance the size of your solar plexus. This is what you don't know. Solar plexus is the area which is there located near the pit of your stomach, and it is a ball of ganglia and nerves, and it is very much essential for the regular functioning of your various organs, and it increases, once the solar plexus functions are enhanced, it will increase your creativity, your intuitive ability, your decision making, leadership qualities, and also your confidence, which probably a gym routine wouldn't provide for. Also, the Surya Namaskar, the postures that you do in Surya Namaskar can be a warm-up session before your asanas. It can help you become disease-free and healthy. A regular practice of Surya Namaskar will balance out your body. It will improve blood circulation. It will strengthen the heart, tone the digestive system. It will stimulate various abdominal muscles, respiratory muscles, the lymphatic system, the spinal cord, and other internal organs. Psychologically, it will regulate the interconnectedness of the body, the breath, the mind, thus making you more calmer, and it will boost your immune responses or immunity. Lastly, don't spend money doing costly facials or costly hair jobs, because Surya Namaskar is immensely beneficial for skin care and for hair care. So I would like you to see a video of Surya Namaskar, which I'll be showing you. Now, before I show you the video, let me tell you that Surya Namaskar is not one single asana. It consists of 12 poses which are done on one side, that is the right side, followed by 12 poses done on the left side. So in total, you are doing 24 poses when you do one single Surya Namaskar. You can do Surya Namaskar multiple number of times as per your capacity. So a round of 10 Surya Namaskar can help you burn as much as 140 to 150 calories. So all you girls who are wanting to ask me whether I can use Surya Namaskar to trim and to lose weight, etc., this is one for you. Okay. Now, if this doesn't seem to be enough, you can have a more vigorous Surya Namaskar. Ria, can you put on the next video, please? Yeah, the last slide, please. Yeah. So this is my message for you. Next slide, please. I think that's all from my side. Thank you.
Ria?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this session. And now I will like to call on our program officer, Miss Rochelle, ma'am, for the question and answers.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. That was a wonderful session. There are some few questions that our participants have asked.
Sure.
So the first question is, what are the challenges a beginner can face when practicing yoga?
Well, let me tell you that you start yoga very gradually. It is not something that you can do with aggression. So I'm not only talking about young people, I'm talking about any age. When you start yoga, start in a very gentle manner. You don't compare yourself to anyone. It is your individual journey. So you may not be able to reach in a forward bend. You may not be able to touch the head to your knee, or someone else may be able to do that. So there is no comparison. You do it very slowly, very gradually, and you will move ahead in this journey of yoga.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. One small announcement before we go to the next questions. The feedback form is given in the chat box. All are please requested to fill in your feedback. The next question is flexibility important for practicing yoga?
Well, let me tell you that as you start practicing yoga, there is an increase in flexibility. So initially, you may not be flexible. It is quite okay. But as you lengthen your spine, as you lengthen the various parts of your body, very slowly, steadily, you yourself will notice that there is a gradual increase in flexibility. In fact, I would say that, one second. In fact, I would say that excess flexibility is also very bad. It should not be that you are excess flexible means you are good in yoga. That is also not true. So whatever the flexibility level, you work yourself to a better flexibility.
Does yoga help to strengthen muscles?
Of course, yes. In fact, as you start practicing yoga, you very soon you will see that your body tones down. And very soon you will be you'll hear people ask you, what are you doing to yourself? How do you look so toned? Okay, so it is going to tone your body. It will give strength to your muscles. In fact, this is a very important part of yoga. It will not only strengthen your bones, but it will also tone your muscles and make the muscles more flexible.
The next question, Jyoti, while practicing a particular yoga pose, if there is some kind of pain, what should be done? Should we continue or should we stop?
No. In case there is a pain, that means there is something wrong. So you have to stop. And then, as I told you, you can use props so that you can go in the same pose without pain. So yoga, as you say, ये आसन जो है ये सहजता से होने चाहिए. Very easily, you should be able to go in the pose very easily. You should not be forcing yourself. So if there is pain, there is something drastically wrong. So if there may be a pain the next day because you have used the muscles, you have stretched the muscles, that pain is okay. But when you are going into a pose and there is pain, you immediately stop. You can't force yourself to do that pose.
So what are the different medical conditions under which yoga is not recommended?
Well, yoga is recommended for all, but there are certain asanas which should not be practiced depending on the particular medical conditions. For example, if there is a person suffering from high BP, he should not be doing or she should not be doing inversions where the head goes down. So inversion should not be done. If you're during the periods, then the inversion should not be done. So there are different medical conditions and different contraindications. So if for the particular asana you may not be able to do in a particular condition. So it is not that all asanas can be done by everyone. So before you start this yoga journey, you have to have a thorough know-how of which asanas, and particularly if you have a medical conditions, of which asanas you're allowed to do and which you should not be doing.
Could you recommend some asanas so that one could help in increasing their weight?
Increasing the weight.
Yeah.
Or decreasing. Oh, I expected
increasing.
Well, all these asanas as you practice these asanas, what happens is your digestion improves, your elimination improves, metabolic changes take place in the body, hunger improves, and very soon you will start feeling that you feel more hungry, you digest the food more properly, and as a result, you will see a gradual increase in your weight.
Okay, thank you so much, Jyoti. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
This pandemic has caused a lot of us to attend a lot of webinars. So we are sitting for long hours in front of the computer.
Yeah.
So are there any techniques that we can relax our muscles, our neck muscles, our back muscles, so that it doesn't get too strenuous for us?
Yeah. See, neck turning, twisting, all this is very common, where you rest your head back, then you touch the chin to the neck, then you rotate you turn your head to the left, to the right. All these are very common and you must be doing them regularly. But my advice is do them very slowly, very steadily without giving any jerk to your neck. Well, the back bends that I showed you are wonderful for the shoulder or neck issue. So any of the back bends that I've shown, if you can practice those back bends, then it will work marvelously for the shoulder and for the neck pain. I can also share my mailing ID so that if there are any personal problems or personal questions that you can ask, you're free to ask, and then I can share a particular posture or a particular asana.
Yes, one more question. It seems a little controversial. Someone has asked, is it easy to how will you differentiate between a true yoga teacher, one who practices for mental and physical forms of yoga, and the one who does it only for a career? I mean, money making.
Well, yoga, I think she has answered the question herself. So yoga is for physical and I practice yoga and I teach yoga so that I get a lot of gratification, physical and mental, when I teach yoga. I do not know money making business and money making. I am not aware of this particular side of yoga. Sorry.
And the last question to you, Jyoti ma'am, is it okay to fall asleep during Shavasana?
Well, I was expecting this question. In fact, this is a very good question. Well, I expected a question why I have not shown Shavasana as a restorative pose, because Shavasana is a very beautiful restorative pose. But the reason I have not shown it here is because Shavasana is the most difficult pose. So there are people who would say, well, I am going into Shavasana and may fall asleep. That is not Shavasana. That is falling asleep. The real challenge is to go into Shavasana and remain awake during the entire session of Shavasana. So there may be people who are very good in twisting, turning their bodies and doing various asanas, but they find it very difficult to do Shavasana. Well, Shavasana has to be done under the guidance or under the instructions of a teacher. Because then it is very easy for you to follow these instructions and not fall asleep. If you're doing it all alone, then there is a likely chance that you may fall asleep. Just like students at the start of the lecture go to sleep and then they wake up when the attendance is being taken. So many people, they fall asleep when the Shavasana session starts and they wake up at the end of the session without gaining any advantage of that particular session. So Shavasana should be done under the instructions of a guru so that you can remain awake at least for some part of the Shavasana and then reap the benefits of the Shavasana. So Shavasana is not falling asleep, but it is taking your awareness from one part of the body to the other and letting go, which is very difficult. I hope I have answered the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am. That's all regarding the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I think in this time of pandemic, when most of us are experiencing elevated levels of stress, yoga can be a wonderful way to de-stress that can be done within the house. So thank you so much for your time, Jyoti ma'am. And on behalf of the NSS team of Sapphire College, I extend my gratitude to you and to all the participants. I request all the participants to fill the feedback form and then you all can leave. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. And thank you all the participants.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll end the session here.